Hey there, welcome back to the worst Warmachine channel on the internet. I don't even know why you're coming here still. I'm Malorian though, and this is Malorian Weekly. And what we're going to be talking about today is how to fix CID. CID is the process that Privateer Press uses for Warmachine so that they can get community involvement so that when they're developing new rules, they can get that feedback in and improve it and make sure basically when you roll out the final product that it's pretty much where it's supposed to be in terms of power level. There's no real, like this is way too powerful or this is way too weak. That's the intent. Now, one of the things I should probably start this whole conversation off with is that I've already done a video before talking about CID, and that one was more around, is CID good? And what I meant by that was, is CID good for the game? Is it actually helping the game? Is it actually hindering? If you're a person that feels like, you know what, the whole CID process is useless and the way to fix it is just to get rid of it, I'm going to suggest you go back and watch that one. There'll be a link down in the description because we are going to go now forward with the premise that from that video where we left off, that in general, CID is a positive improvement on what the situation is for this game. Even though it's not perfect and even though it opens up some Pandora boxes that is maybe not healthy to the game in general, the main thing is that when models are coming out, well, they're not going to be crazy broken because we've had a chance to look at them, a chance to improve them. And so even if that just means that the disparity of, super overpowered to super underpowered is brought down to this, a little bit more reasonable, that's a good thing for the game. Now, that being said, nothing's perfect. Anything can be improved. And this video is now going to be focusing on that. If we now accept that CID is good for the game, how could it be better for the game? How could we fix the whole CID process so it actually does better for all of us and what its actual intended, goal is supposed to be? Now, what we should then go to next is, what is the goal of CID? Why do we even have this process? What is its big targets that it's trying to do? And I think we already talked about it, but that's very important then to kind of get these things out to make sure that anything that we suggest after that hits these main points that we're going to be covering right now. And the number one that it has to be is, it has to be used as a way to balance your model's rules. That is the number one thing that this process is supposed to do. Hey, here's some rules we got. We think that they're good. Do you think they're good? And if it's like, whoa, you forgot about this interaction, let's catch them right away. What's the next thing that the CID process really does? Well, the next thing it really lets them do is lets them hype up the community, right? The very fact that it's there, we're saying, hey, here's these new things, take a look at the rules, that gets people excited, right? If you were just to go and release models and be like, surprise, they're at the stores right now, I mean, that's good and exciting, but if you can have that hype coming before, well, that's just more time you're spending thinking about Warmachine, and that's just good for the game in general. It also gives players a sense of input and control over their game, right? If you're sitting back and feeling frustrated because like, oh, this thing is just so broken, but hey, there's nothing we can do about it because Privateer Press and their golden palace isn't going to care about us. The fact that there's some spot there for people to go and give that feedback is another big plus for what the CID is supposed to be there for. So really, it's supposed to be, and number one is like way higher than the number two, but the number one thing it has to do is help balance the rules, 2, help hype, and 3, give the community, if nothing else, a sense of feedback, a place where they can actually talk to their overlords and say like, Master, can I please have one more mat? Or something like that, right? So that's what we're aiming for. We're going to take everything now going forward, and it has to hit those in some way. Now, where are we right now? So we know what we're starting with and where we're going to be going to. Well, where we're starting with right now is, it's not like some morning, Hungerford just goes like, hey, it'd be fun? A grass monster that has reach and blah, blah, blah rules, and boom, there you go, CID. No, this is something that they talk about, they propose, they develop, they test in-house for a very long time, and then only after they feel it's 90% there, or whatever percent, then they roll it out to CID. So there is that initial portion there, and that's very important. Past that, we're now on the CID process. They now go and they release the first draft of the rules. It's all there for you to test. It's done over multiple weeks. They take the learnings from the previous weeks to plug it in. They're getting feedback from battle reports, just general comments. Of course, the real push right now is that anything that's actually like a battle report, where it's not just like, well, I feel you should be doing this, but like, look, I played this game, I had this build, and in this situation, this was too good, not good, could be different, whatever else. Something where you're actually showing that is, of course, having more meaning to Privateer Press as opposed to general couch troll saying whatever. And then as the weeks go, at some point they feel it's good enough. Sometimes some things are good, but other pieces have to go another week, and then nothing. Then there's kind of quiet for a long time, and then after that, boom, it's out there on War Room, and we're all told this is it, and it's time to use these models in the rules. And it works okay. Now, where are the real problems with this? Well, the real problems with this, and where we have to really focus on that, is, of course, we can't deal with the before stuff. All the internal playtesting, that's all great. I mean, I don't even know exactly what they do for sure, but the fact that they talk about things and internally test them, that's fantastic. Keep doing that, Privateer Press. The fact that they come out and they release them and say, here are the rules, go out and test them, that's fantastic. That's great. I think it's past this, though, now is where I'd like these things to change, because the way it works is that this is a very fast-paced trial, and then it's done. And so in order to enact change, you have to be really in there. You have to be really able to test different combinations. And again, there's so many models in this game. So the idea that I have to try it in all the different potential themes, all the potential casters in each one of those themes, and then against all the other possible factions with all their themes and all their casters and all the different scenarios, there are so many permutations of the things to be tested, it is impossible to test them all. So the idea that we're going to go with like CID week 1, 2, 3, I think is completely the wrong way you want to think about it. Not only is this thing short in that you don't really have time to really be doing all these things like we're saying, but it's just so tight and so small that really during this period, people could be busy. Well, sorry, this week I was busy, so I just could not go in there and do this CID. Or maybe I'm free and I can actually do these things, but everybody else isn't free. Or maybe I'm free and you're free, but look, I don't have time to go onto your forum there and put in a little report to give you the full battle report and my thoughts on every little interaction. So it's very time intensive. And the more that you squish this down and make it small, the worst feedback you're going to get. A big part of my job is to try and get feedback from the people I'm rolling out my process to, and I just want to have that door wide open all the time. I push things as long as I can, because if I try and roll out something new and say like, all right, you got 5 minutes to test to go, well, what do you think I'm going to get from this, right? Obviously, the shorter it is, the less useful it's going to be. And maybe one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is, does it have to be short? Well, if it's shorter, that is a lot with that hype train thing of like, hey, what about this? But it's definitely not hitting that number 1 where we want to end up with the most balanced rules. And I'm sure it doesn't hit that number 3 where people feel like they're getting feedback, right? It's obviously there, the door is open, but it's not like everyone really has the time. It might be a lot of these cases where like, look, I wasn't on Facebook for a week or two, and now what? This whole CID thing's already over? I completely missed it. I didn't have a chance to give my feedback. So really, shortening the door is not doing us any favors. So the opposite of shortening is to widen it. And I think that's the very first thing we want to do, is just widen that door right up. How wide do we want to go? Well, how long does it take people to really have a good chance to really test things? And I think that something that's reasonable for what would be normally week 1 would be month 1. In month 1, we're going to say, these are the rules, go. And the purpose of that first week is going to be mainly primarily, what's super mega busted? Is there something in there where it's like, oh man, we forgot, if you do this spell here, that says too much power. Oh man, if you get this interaction here, this is too crazy, or maybe it's just not doing anything at all. Over that month period, they'll definitely be able to pick these things out. Now, again, what they did before would be a week 1, week 2, and same purpose. Biggest changes in the beginning, and then fine-tuning as you're going. Well, would I go from month 1 to month 2? No, I would not whatsoever. I would then go from that point and say, month 1 CID, all right, here are the rules, done, push, and they're going to be out. This is going to make sure that goes out on War Room, the cards are out there, and they're able to actually go and use these. Now, that is important because the way that you have to then really fine-tune this to find out if it actually works is to even just use them. There are so many people out there that just don't even do CID because, look, I play regular games. I don't have time to try and learn rules that aren't going to be actually in effect. But if they are in effect and they can be tested, well, now's the time to do that. What I am suggesting is something that they'd actually did on Conflict Chamber for quite a while now, which is when new CID things are out and you're looking at your bunch of options, well, there's going to be ones that are saying these are the regular ones and these are the CID ones, and they're all there to be used, and you can use them at events and regular gaming a lot more easier, right? People that are trying to be doing CID games right now have to come with their bunch of papers, and they're like, okay, this does this, this does that. You don't have that luxury of the War Room that we've all grown to love and use. So it's just not really practical. Whereas if they do roll it out and have the cards available and have the War Room update available, people can use them. And again, it has to be open to where you can use them in things like events and stuff like that. Which means that we have to change another option, which means that in stuff like steamrollers, just like how there's some options where is it going to be time turns? Is it going to be death clock? Is it going to be no death clock? Is it going to be 75 points? Is it going to be 50 points? Another big decider will be, does this event allow CID options? So this would not be during that first month. During that first month, we're still trying to figure out if things are busted. This is going to be after that. Let's say 3 months where we're just saying, look, they're going to be out there. They're going to be legal to use in CID, in events that allow you to use CID, but they're out there for you to use. And who knows, maybe after that, it'll be exactly the same. Maybe after that, we'll make some changes. But over that period of the 3 months, now all of a sudden, you're getting the real data. Now you're getting things where people are taking it to tournaments. Is it winning tournaments? Is it crushing tournaments? What's happening in all these different interactions? And there's time to see that fine tuning. And then after that's all done, they can take in all that information, do the final push out, and that's it. And yes, this is now taking something that would be something more like, hey, this is now 3 weeks, let's say, and pushing out to 4 months. But at the same time, is it really that big of a change? I mean, really the way it was before is we're going to do this fast for a couple of weeks, and then months later is when it's actually going to be rolled out. So there's that big time window anyway. Now we're saying let's use that time to actually be testing and pushing things out. Now, I know some people that are out there that are, computer savvy is kind of saying like, well, Malorian, a big part that they're doing with that time is those updates. It's not like you can just do these things automatically. And I also kind of disagree with that because I do computer stuff myself. I know how fast it is to update some of these things. But there's also sometimes if you're doing something that's a new function, something where like, oh, now you have this Malvin and Mayhem, which you have to attach to a Tinker. Well, there actually is like stuff inside the tool that you have to figure out how you're going to make it work. That can take time. Then again, you can be figuring out all those tough things like that prior. Back then when we're actually play testing this inside of Privateer Press, you can work that stuff out then. That's the time to probably work out those things so that when it comes up, it's really like, okay, that first month is over, push, here are the rules we're going for. After, when you're having all that feedback, push, here are the results, and this is what we're using till the next time it's CID'd or whatever. And you're probably also thinking, well, okay, computer updates is one thing. What about the decision of where you're wanting to go? Well, you're assuming then that that's something that they're doing after all the feedback, when really what they should be doing is monitoring the feedback and actively changing their judgment based on that feedback, right? I'm not going to just cover my eyes and then after the 1 month or after the 3 months, just go like, okay, what do we got? Oh my God, it's so overpowered, it's crushing everything, right? I'm actively watching and seeing feedback, taking notes, being like, oh, this is too high, what's my solution? And really, unless it's such a weird cycle where nobody's giving feedback to the very end, they're having time to get that feedback. They're having time to talk internally and find solutions, or even looking at the solutions given to them, such that when they're at the end, look, you've had a month. You kind of know where you're going. After the 3 months, you should be ready on like the day after that to push it out because you've had so much time to do this. Now, let's look at our 3 things though. Is this actually going to meet what we're trying to do better than what we had before? Number 1, is it going to make a more balanced game? Oh my God, yes. Obviously, if you have more time to give that feedback and more time to test, it will make a more balanced game. Caveat here. That means that after that first month, that we're only having the one time to update and change the rules. So if you think of one case where this model came out, the rules are too wrong, had to be dramatically changed, so that second week is really important because it's basically like a new model. We changed so much. Sure, if that happens, that's something they'll have to deal with, but that's just kind of making more reason like, well, PP, let's try and get some ducks in the row, right? You should not be in these cases where like, man, we dropped the ball so hard, we have to go all the way back to the drawing board, right? It should be something more like, ooh, that's a big deal. Let's just tweak it this little way, tweak it a little like that. Like tweak is the main word here, not dramatically redo the entire thing. So yes, that is a possibility, which, you know, if that did happen, hey, we got the 3 months where it's super crazy, but hey, look, there's things that are super crazy anyways. I don't think you'll have these cases where it's like, hey, it's super crazy Sloan and Infernals, or what people complaining now about Fiona. And even then, at least you got a clock on it, right? Like 3 months, we know this will be fixed. How many other things right now are like, it'll be years before it's fixed, right? There's a clock on it, if nothing else. All right, so number 1, big winner, ding, 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 Malorian wins. Number 2, is it going to help with the hype? Absolutely. You know, when you have these CIDs and it's like fast done, there are so many people that don't want to even get into it because, again, I'm learning rules that aren't going to mean anything and it's just going to change and I'm just not going to even deal with this whatsoever. It's coming out. It's giving you time to look at these things. You're knowing that it's going to be showing up at events. Of course, you're going to be caring more about these things. People are going to be more invested, right? The whole hype thing is definitely going to be there. And it also means like, hey, when you got like this big, huge CID coming out, you're thinking about, okay, well, at this event, I'll be able to do the CID stuff there. These things are going to be building into that hype. Not a big win here, but definitely a plus. Last one, is it going to give players a better chance to have control and feedback? Yeah, absolutely. Of course, if there's way more time to be submitting way more data, yes, that's going to be much higher. So I'm sure that there are a plethora of ways you could actually be running CID with different pluses and minuses. And I think that in general, what I'm proposing here would be way better. So again, to summarize what I'm proposing, there would still be the PP internal testing. They're going to propose the idea, talk about it, internally test it, find something that's 90% there, roll it out for the CID process. That's going to last over a month. And then over that time, they're getting the feedback so that after a month, there is the CID released version, which is out on War Room, out to be used. You'll have 3 months in order to go and actually go over these things and use them at tournaments, and they're collecting all this data and figuring out where it's supposed to be. And at the end of that, boom, it's out. And here's the other nice thing. That all works out to 4 months, which means that it's really going to mean that you can have this done 3 times over a year. You can now start making a schedule around this. You can start saying, we're going to do 3 CIDs a year, and they're going to be bang, 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 and just keep on churning through things. I think that'd be really great as well if this was on a calendar and you knew, like, okay, when they do their big keynote for the next 3 cycles, this is what we're going to be doing, not as opposed to for the next one, it's going to be this. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here, a lot of opportunity to improve. And the biggest thing is that it doesn't cost PP anything, right? If they want to go and do this, they just let these things run longer. That's just better for them. I don't know why they wouldn't want to do this. You know, you could argue that people are going to not want to wait through all of this so they can get their finalized rules. But again, they also don't like having fast, and then not being able to play with them at all officially until it's released months later. So this really is an improvement in all regards. PP, if you're listening, there's for free. There you go. Here's for you. Otherwise, for everyone, if you have any comments or other thoughts on these, please post them down below. And otherwise, we'll catch you later. Bye.